Good afternoon. Welcome back. It is Thursday, October 12th, 2023. We have a few birthdays and only a couple of events to talk about. Looking at the schedule or looking at the events that happened on this day in history. From 1975 to 1997, there were not any Cup Series races on this date. Now, that's kind of twofold for a number of reasons. One, just the calendar itself is an anomaly. But two, this was kind of the time of year where most racing series, including the Cup Series, was winding down. So you might have just one weekend of the year where there might have been a break between a couple of small sets of races. So generally, this was a transition where the Cup Series would be at Charlotte. Of course, last weekend they were at the Roval. So they would have been on the oval for many, many years. So there might have been a break in the action after Charlotte or before Charlotte to prepare the teams for the last two or three races of the season. But two races or two events that I picked out on this date. 1997, we did mention that this was the first Cup race since 1975 on this date. Terry Labonte won at Talladega. Not really a big surprise. Terry had another win at Talladega in 1989, and he's always consistent on the plate tracks. But the kind of the bigger thing was with this was the first race for Talladega in October. They had moved the race previously from July, and they did this to escape the really the brutal heat that could be in Alabama in that July and August period. I can attest to that, being down there in '86 when it was 105 or so in the shade. So it was a brutal day that day. But they moved it to October '97, and it kind of intensified those late season races. Of course, now it's in the playoffs. Makes the playoffs a little bit more interesting as well. They did have a big wreck in this race, as most plate races do, or speedway races, or whatever they call them now. I believe about 22 cars were involved in this one. And this was the race that Ernie Irvan did run the Davey Allison throwback, the black and white scheme. Then on this day in 2019, Spencer Boyd wins his first career truck race at Talladega. So, again, Talladega known for first-time winners. There's another good example. Excuse me. Let's transition over to our birthdays. Born on this day on 1956, former journeyman IndyCar driver, ran a few 500s and some races in the IRL when that series was formed, Mr. Mark Dismore. So we do have our, let's flip these over the right way. We do have our English version and our French version for those that are in Quebec or over in other French-speaking entities. So you can pause that and learn your French while we look at IndyCar trading cards. So Mr. Dismore, born on this day in 1956. Born on this day in 1941, another journeyman driver of sorts. He did have 4 Cup Series wins and raced for teams such as Raymock, the Wood Brothers, Bud Moore, and then had one-offs or shorter stints in. I know he's ran a race for Richard Childress. He's ran a few races for Mach 1. He's raced with Race Hill Farms team, J.D. Stacy, Cliff Stewart. You name it, Morgan's probably at least had a seat time in it. I don't know if he's ever ran a Petty Enterprises car, but he probably has at some point. But that would be Morgan Shepherd. So there you see Morgan. This would be his win in 1990 in Atlanta, the Atlanta Journal 500. And then he ran for Bud Moore for a couple seasons. Then he went to the Wood Brothers from 92 to 96. Really like that card. I think that's a pretty cool looking card. At that time, he'd run Busch Series a lot during this era in the 80s and 90s. So this was when he was running his own Cheerwine sponsored Ford. Went to Butch Mock Motorsports. That was the Raymock team, but Butch Mock bought out Bob Rahilly and was renamed Butch Mock Motorsports with the Remington people. Another cool card. I've actually got this card signed. 97, he went to Richard Jackson's team, ran part of the year there, pretty much unsponsored. He then hopped over to the 77, that ill-fated Jasper team. It finished the year back with Richard Jackson. And then you see a huge gap here from 97 to 16, so 20 years worth of cards in between. And Panini put him in some of their sets, and of course he was right on Xfinity mostly during this time, so you get a good look at some of his uniforms. Of course, never ran a sponsor. I always liked that uniform, 50 years in NASCAR. Of course, that's meaning Morgan Shepherd. We got some looks at his cars here. There's the 1990 Budmore car that he ran. Not a great look, but here's a little bit better look at it. I always liked that paint job. I thought it was nicely done. The one that he ran in 92 was more plain. Jeff Bodine would run this scheme in 93, or 92 and 93. Couple Wood Brothers schemes here. The one that he started with and the one he finished with. You can see the Sitco there as an angle on the back quarter panel. Here it's just laid down horizontally. The Remington car, of course, that was always a nice looking card. I think that's a sharp looking card with the American flag in the background, the Max Made in America set. There's that Richard Jackson car we spoke of, Cruise in America. Phone cards and Delco Remy. Again, we've seen this card earlier, didn't realize I had it in there twice, but that's the best look of a Jasper car that he was driving at the time. Talked about his Busch Series cars. There's one of the cars that he owned, Texas Pete, barbecue sauce. And there's that Cheerwine card. Cheerwine, I believe, is a soda. It's like a red soft drink, kind of like a red pop or a red cream soda, maybe. I've had it once or twice before, but it was way, way, way back in the mid-90s. And our other birthday, born on this day in 1932, two-time Cup Series champion, gentleman of a man, you know him as Mr. Ned Jarrett. These cards are not in any particular order except this first one, which I think is just a hilarious tie-in because you have both of our birthday boys right there, Morgan Shepherd and Ned Jarrett. I never got to watch Ned race, but I always got to hear his voice. So it was always good to hear him on CBS. There's a good look at one of his Fords that he raced. There's another look at Ned. I think that's when he was having a pit fire or a fire extinguisher going off in the car. Good look at him in his younger days. But he was the host inside Winston Cup Racing with Steve Burns. Also was on the MRN team for quite a while. Like I said, CBS, ESPN as well. There's a good look at one of the Fords that he raced. But haven't got to meet Ned. There's a couple times maybe I could have, but I knew that it was going to be a long, long line. And there's days that, you know, well, I wish I had now. But he does do TTM, so I highly recommend that. I think I've sent off to him once or twice, so I might send off to him one more time, you know. But I don't like to... most of the drivers, if I can get 3 or 4 autographs of them, then I'm happy. But anyway, that's been birthdays and events for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button on your way out. It would really, really mean a lot to me. So thanks again for watching. Really, really do appreciate it, and we'll see you tomorrow.